Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name's Brian and this is Ginger Prime. So for returning subscribers, you are a freaking magnificent beast and you know it. And if you're new here and you want to be a magnificent beast, feel free to hit that subscribe button and check out more of the content. Today we're going to be diving into a monstrous amount of information. Now before we get into that and in the details, I want to kind of set up some summaries, give you guys basically the TLDR in case you don't want to hang out. But this video might end up going a little bit long, and because of that, I want to say I'm going to put no mid-rolls on this video just so you guys can get the information. And the reason I'm able to do that is because Aaron and Lax have just joined the membership, so thank you guys for checking a look at that, taking a look. Either way, it works. I appreciate y'all's support, and hopefully everybody gets to benefit from no mid-roll. So this is going to be a little bit more both informational. I'm going to share my insight as a developer myself, but also kind of talk about like those who've actually worked at Blizzard and what they're saying about the supposed leaks, as well as what it kind of means in terms of Asmongold streaming, Final Fantasy XIV coming out of quote unquote nowhere, which if you've been playing Final Fantasy XIV like me for any amount of time, it didn't really come out of nowhere. And that's the key takeaway. I want to kind of just the TLDR here. There is so many red flags in these posts. And what I mean by that is that when I'm reading these posts, I'm getting elements of Anthem, where they're like, we can't talk about Destiny. I'm getting elements of, obviously Final Fantasy XIV 1.0. There seems to be some of these mindsets that are kind of trickling in to these developers. And again, we're going to cover this information in full detail here. And so with that, the supposed leaks, we're going to just classify that as a plausible. It's not necessarily going to say like this is exactly coming from Blizzard, but there's some theme here, at least if nothing else. The feeling is resonating with a lot of gamers. And then we're going to go into what Grummz is saying, former WoW dev, on the game itself, kind of his intake, especially as to the state of Blizzard, but also within AAA development. Lots of insight to be had here. So whether you're looking to get into the industry or you're just looking to make, feel free to take this information, make your own video with it as well. Links will be all in the description below. So personally speaking, there's always a lot of things going on, and money tends to be both a good thing and a bad thing. It's kind of like, I've always believed money doesn't make you a good person or a bad person. It just makes you more of who you are. And more money in game development tends to mean more games. But there's also a catch, right? You want to have a return on that investment. And I think essentially that's kind of one of the themes that we're seeing here. The other themes we're seeing is that not really paying attention to what other people are doing. You're kind of living in your own bubble. And WoW has been on the top for a long time. And that top tends to kind of get you comfortable. And so the other theme that we're going to see here in these posts tends to be with, hey, we're top, players are going to come back. This is just, something that's going on. And it's shifted within Blizzard, and I think everybody's felt that shift to where it's like, we're really not so concerned with subscribers. We're going to make our money with the expansion. We're going to make our money. We're going to, sucker them in for like a 6-month thing just for a special amount so we can pad the numbers. And that's going to be how we kind of make this financially viable. But there's some definitely themes here that don't bode well for the state of WoW. And the question is how do we fix it? How does this get resolved? Because I don't want to see, I like to see WoW continue for another 20 years, another 30 years. I like to see what that would look like in terms of games and players, right? But that's going to be another conversation for another day. A lot of the interesting pieces here, it's also important to note, because it's funny, both Blizzard and Square Enix have a very close relationship. Square Enix handles localization for them in Japan, and Yoshi P is a big fan of Blizzard, and he goes out there. So there are some relationships that do exist. But the thought that it kept popping in my head this morning was around that idea. Like, if somebody comes to visit your office, you tend to want to have things together. You don't want to necessarily air out your issues with another developer who, in a way, especially right now, has taken the top spot in terms of being the king of MMOs right now. And we're seeing this, and we're even seeing people within the 14 community worried because there's a lot of big players who are on break right now. Like, when it comes down to it, 14's in this surge mode, and some of the big streamers are just playing other things right now because they can. They've done everything that they need to do in the game. And Yoshi P himself says, take breaks and play other games. He does the same thing, and he wants us to have that ability and that privilege. So it's fascinating to see how this is playing out overall. Anyway, I've introed this long enough. Let's go ahead and dive into the post. This starts with Grummz. Supposedly this Blizzard leak about the current state of WoW. It may not be legit, but the attitude described about monetization and how devs view gamers and hate streamers is true overall in AAA. So let's go ahead and dive into the post here. Let me just make sure that you guys can see it plenty well. And let's, yep, I think that looks pretty good. Okay. Again, for the sake of argument, this is the information. Take it, discount it, believe it or don't believe it. I think essentially the true thing that we can definitely say about it is that it feels good, or it feels right. It feels like this could, be true. And I think that's essentially an important kind of piece of this whole puzzle. All right. Shadowlands is a bleep show. Critical response, player drop off, and just about every engagement metric outside of the cash shop have been catastrophic. This is something we see repeated over and over and over again. They want to make money, and they've had subscribers and everything leave, but they've made more money. No higher up expected this because of their "we're too big to fail" mentality, and if we built it, they will come. They refuse to accept their focus on the world being a begrudged mechanic to funnel players into raiding, and it's not appealing to the player base at large because it appeals to them. They have spent the last 4 months trying to course correct, but there is no solid direction, and the response to 9.1 has made this only worse. Also important to note, guys, if you're new here, I'm dyslexic, and I guess there's a comedy behind the fact that I do a lot of reading publicly in these videos. So I'm probably going to mispronounce something. And just note that I'm not misreading things on purpose. Sometimes my brain just reads it wrong, or sometimes I stutter. Also, with this that I've dealt with my whole life, I've trained my brain, unfortunately, for some words that I just say wrong, and I struggle with certain words. Anyway, I just want to put that disclaimer out there on a recent New World video. I see a lot of it, from new people who discover the channel, feeling like they're maybe trying to be helpful. Some of them try to be helpful, trying to just think I'm an idiot. You know what? I'll let you make up your mind on that regards. All right. Sylvanas has planned to replace the Arbiter despite so many people in the company, and God knows how many online saying that this would be a total replication of Kyrion's storyline in StarCraft II that killed non-competitive interest in the brand. And entirely, you can't go, no, they will like it eventually. So for many real-world players, before it's time to change course. Thus far, it has not happened. The elephant in the room is Final Fantasy XIV. Now, this is interesting to kind of see this phrasing here. To the people in charge, they are acting like this came out of nowhere and don't even seem to understand why it's drawing players away in their tens of thousands. We have all tried to highlight things, and it's doing it clearly to appeal to the MMO audience, and not, in my opinion, focusing more on mobile game style and retention traps to keep MAU users and habit-forming personalities logging in. It's not that they don't care. It's just that they seem so pig-headed and digging their heels in with their fingers in their ears, thinking of all the problems will go away because WoW's too big to fail, and there'll never be real competition, and they'll keep coming back. But they aren't coming back anymore, not in the numbers that they used to. I have a feeling that what's true about they will keep coming back is for an expansion. I think when you see an expansion release, you'll see people come back, and then you'll see them leave. And then what that does is it kicks off another WoW exodus in that regards, because it's like, oh, it'll be better next time. Could it? And that's the thing, like just the fact that I asked, could it be better? And the answer is, yeah, it could be better. There's a hope there, right? Like people want WoW to succeed. There's so much that people have invested in WoW. It would be thrilling to see that come back, right? So at the core of it, I think that's what's happening with that mindset. Now, the question is that has that reached a breaking point? I've talked to people in the comments and in Discord and on stream, and they've described what is happening as like a divorce. And that in and of itself is massively painful. I went through the going from 11 to Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 and just how catastrophic that was. And there was some times where it was like, I felt down. I felt sad. I don't want to say depressed, because I've been depressed, and it was something a little bit different. But it definitely wasn't, I get, the excitement kind of got ahead of me. Anyway, that's TLDR. All right, continue on. The people making the spending choices know this. The new model for WoW is the market the hell out of the expansion for a huge quarter and then 6 months lock-in to pad the numbers for that quarter and after that. Even if Corona didn't happen, 9.1 would have still been dropping after the initial 6 month sub expired to keep the chain holding. Yeah, I think that's essentially like, if that is true, why wouldn't you come to Final Fantasy XIV? If that is true, why wouldn't you come to Final Fantasy XIV? Because there isn't we're going to drop the next patch once we get that hook in. It's like, no, it's going to be every 3-ish months, right? And yes, there's, sub, you got 3 months of sub patch, 3 months of sub patch. Well, the player can choose to dip in and dip out. And we see that, and you can even, like, if you track just the market trends in the in-game market, that's what you'd see. You'd see big spikes, dip down, big spikes, dip down, because players come and play and then they kind of, maybe take a break and things like that. So, but that never felt good about the mount. That 14 did that, I think, once. And I was always surprised they didn't do it again. But now, kind of when you think about how that kind of puts an artificial hook there, right? Donut sub because you want that mount. Shout out to Llama Todd, by the way. It's not his mug, but every time I drink from it, I think of him. All right. The mood of the company is tense also, but very much just a rough transition period. Activision has been pushing hard for Blizzard to release more regular products and to generate more income per user. As far as I know, it's going to be a transition over the next 5 years to a much larger mobile tablet gaming focus. We've talked about this numerous times. It just makes sense. My personal stance on it is just don't do mobile only games. Like, bring them everywhere. Fortnite shows that's completely possible. And I think that's essentially what you want. By all accounts, not just WoW, but Overwatch was intended to be a moneymaker in the interim. But once again, someone had the bright idea to kill a game for casual players, a love after and loved on the altar of esports, hoping for another brood war. From what I hear, the told you so's were loud and a lot of people walked beyond Kaplan. The sentiment was shared quietly in private, but being spoken of more is simply that the leadership at Blizzard are not bad people, nor incompetent people, but people who've had fill the seats when the old guard jumped ship, and they were suited for it or not. Brock is generally a good man, but out of his depth. Ian, is a fantastic raid designer, put in charge of designing a virtual world. He has no interest in real ideas for so on. They have just been taking form the roles that they excel at and put in positions where they can get to do as far less than the purely because there is a nobody. Man, I'm struggling with this part. They've been taking from the roles they excel at and have been put into positions where they get to do far less of that purely because there is nobody left with the experience to do so. And the trickle down is a lack of concrete direction and ambition of focus. Okay. So let's say this was not true. The best way to sell something like this is to put what people generally believe. I constantly hear Ian is a great raid designer, etc. I constantly hear these things about these individuals, right? Like, so if nothing else, if this whole thing is a lie, that's a really great way to kind of seed it with things that we've all heard and believed to be true. All right. 2021 has seen the player base, media, and gaming at large turn on WoW to a degree that I don't think that their leads in their positivity dojo bubble consider this possible. It's gone from people going, this is how Blizz needs to fix WoW, to WoW is no longer salvageable, time for greener pastures. And I think that on some level, this was never considered as a possibility, so that there have never been any major plans beyond the usual. Try to minimize the player drop-off by arranging releases around competitors launching update products. The official forums have been filled with talk of Final Fantasy XIV and worse. Why do we actually pay a sub? Hasn't helped. There has been some testing the waters lately from certain higher-ups that if we can remove the line of no king rules forever, read into that what you will, there are still arguments going on about how Calthal's voice actors bleep show. I don't know how much about that. I know it's heated. Wouldn't be the first time a knee-jerk reaction only seemed to generate bad press. We lost noticeable amount of PvP engagement after the Swiftly thing, and Preach's interview was treated as a disaster, and then there was talk of more strongly vetting interviewers or for bad actors and only engaging with a list of questions Blizzard provided. Some pointed out that this could just be used to create some form of fireside chat akin to the 14 live letters, but that fell on deaf ears. The two sentiments right now among the team were either we really need to win, or there's a dedicated capital of internet trolls out to kill WoW. Now, we've said this, I think the only people who can kill WoW are WoW in that regards, and it seems like they're doing some kind of job in that regards. I'm not going to say stand-up job because that seems insincere. Right now we are crunching hard to get 9.2 ready to wrap up the Jailer storyline so that we can get an expansion out early 2022. If that doesn't happen, there are talks about major shakeups coming down from Activision and that have been threatening this for a few years now. It's an all hands on deck feeling that has been around for some degree. Since this is an out of season April Fool's joke, Blizzard has a make or break deadline is coming closer, and things like Diablo 4 were not at all planned before then. Blizzard needs a significant win, not to just initial profit, but consumer goodwill. Nobody likes working at a what a public now sees as the bad guy in the MMO industry. This has also made new hires decline, not significantly, but though you want to work, you want Blizzard on your resume line doesn't seem to have the appeal it used to. This has led to more hiring via friend of friend and some rumblings about nepotism and people severely lacking in experience because they get great Twitter optics. Couple things here. I've definitely you want Blizzard on your resume is definitely a line that makes sense. At the core point, the major shakeups essentially kind of tie into what a lot of people kind of believe. Like, Activision's in charge. Like, it's Activision Blizzard, and so when I talk to gamers in the know, I usually just use Activision. When I talk to gamers who are like, yeah, I love Diablo, I'll use Activision Blizzard like as the naming structure. But what it kind of sings here is a different contrast to Final Fantasy XIV's Yoshi P. Yoshi P, for the good or bad, I think is awesome. Shadowbringers took away the Metacritic connection to pay developers bonuses, and developers got bonuses and they got paid, and especially now. But he took that away, and then Shadowbringers crushes the Metacritic. I think that essentially that kind of pressure, that thought in the back of your head, oh, if I do this, maybe that might hurt the Metacritic score, or if I do this, players might not like it, or they might, ends up, I think, creating this problem, not intentionally, right? You're like, hey guys, if we have a great game, we're going to give out bonuses and we're going to rate this off Metacritic. Yay, everybody wins. And then it's like, oh God, because it's so subjective, as opposed to just make a great game and let's just get you paid. And then it's like, to have that kind of freedom return. What I'm seeing here is that Yoshi P has implemented something that is better for the players by kind of taking that pressure off the developers, where in Blizzard's case, if this is true, that they're feeling pressure from the top. Like, you guys got to get it good. You got to make it good. You got to and then it's and then when it's not good, or you think it's good and then the player doesn't, essentially that creates, friction with the player in that regards. Anyway, on the topic of Twitter, we are now being told to disengage from it. Multiple employees like Nerve and Hosky publicly attacking paying customers because they got too heated and couldn't keep quiet is bad press, and they could have been avoided. An email reminder has gone around more than once lately saying that if you're not in customer relations, you should not be representing the company to customers, especially if you cannot remain professional. Lastly, the biggest elephant in the room is your boy Asmongold. The new hires. What's that going? Your boy Asmongold. As the new hires cannot stand him. They have used him as terms like toxic masculinity and dog whistles and dangerous males, while some of the oldest crowds still remaining have called him based, I'm assuming biased, and or telling it like it is, which has only led to friction, to put it mildly. People are told not to talk about him, and the recent Final Fantasy XIV stuff only made it worse. The idea that an outside element can have as much effect as the product, it generally upsets people. Like Zach is engaging in some malicious act of cyber warfare. Many of us have pointed out that now famous quotes by Nokia Yoshida about understanding what players will drift, and we will need to make something worth coming back to, because they will want to but some people, for lack of a better word, see customers or consumers, as they refer to them nowadays, as some kind of antagonistic relationship where the goal is not being an entertainer, but putting on a show for a crowd, but some kind of game hunter trying to trap a large and profitable kill. I wish I could blame Activision, but this sentiment is from more of the younger crowd than the tech boomers, which personal opinion is probably why so many folks like Mezen and Morheim left. All right, last section, and then we'll jump into the tweets themselves. All right, before you ask on the topic of wokeness, it has shown up in group talks, but it's not about some grand social justice warrior conspiracy. People really do want people to feel welcome and represented. There's nothing wrong with that. However, that we need everything vetoed by people not working on it to see if it is inoffensive and bland enough. Rubs some of us the wrong way. Like anything in life, that you can take something too far and lose sight of the core ideals. And with everything gone on since Blizzchung, it feels like people are forming little factions to pull people into different directions to decide what Blizzard's identity is now and how to appeal to new players. There has been some drop off with the go woke and go broke as the only answer in the survey when unsubbing, but honestly, we are losing subs in unforeseen numbers. Anyway, it's still making more money than ever through the cash shop, heavy users, so honestly, it doesn't seem to make an impact. All the things are rough right now. Blizzard doesn't have the love of the customers anymore. It is no longer treated as an industry giant like in while D4 and D2R and Immortal aren't going to kill Diablo even if they fail. The sentiment for World of Warcraft and Overwatch 2 are a lot more tense and stressful. The phrase, it might be good to brush up on your mobile development portfolio if we get another unperformer, has been going the rounds a lot. If Shadowlands continues its stark decline and Overwatch 2 is looking to underperform like its current projections suggest, I think that Blizzard's in a few years from now from the imitating King a lot more than trying to learn any lessons from Square Enix's MMO division. So, like, that's a big post, guys. If you've jumped ahead and you're just going to jump into the tweets now, welcome. You missed a lot of really interesting information. I think this is some interesting insight. It'll be interesting for me if it aligns with essentially what I think and how I kind of like approach these kind of situations. But anyway, all right, let's dive into it. How did we get here? A couple things happened in AAA development that led up to this point. The biggest thing is the money. Once AAA gaming got a lot bigger than all media, you start to attract a lot of execs who are in it for the immense profit versus the love of making games. This change starts at the top and it's made worse by game companies going public. So that means they have to answer to shareholders. There's a lot of going public, you know, like within a company, it makes it harder. There's a lot of reporting. There's a lot of like validation you have to do when it comes down to it. It ends up like, I remember I was with the company and we were preparing to go public and it was just a nightmare. We stopped doing the things we loved just so we could do all these things that are legally required. And it was hell. Like it was just, I did not enjoy that process. I'm glad I'm not doing that right now. Now I'm going to speak about the money, obviously, here for a second. Like I said at the beginning, money doesn't make you good or bad. You know, like you're either, you know, if you have money and you're a good person, you do good things with your money. If you're a bad person, you'll do bad things with money. So it doesn't necessarily change who you are. For some people, I feel like they discover who they are, you know, whether they have a lot of money or they don't. Like you have to make decisions, right? Yes. AAA, like games has definitely attracted a lot more investment, and there's pros and cons. There's pros and cons, right? The pros are more games, like awesome things. Microsoft spending lots of money in game development with Game Pass. That's a good thing because for me, at least, I trust Phil Spencer. Like I've been following his career for a long time, and it would be the highlight of my day to ever get to sit down and interview him. If nothing else, just have a beer with the guy. But I think that he's the fact in charge of the Microsoft spin and has that, you know, studio mindset, the gamer mindset as a pro, where then you shift over into Stadia, where a lot of people are developers are still skeptical, you know, like, okay, like who is this big tech company coming in and saying what I can do, what I can't. So that's a good, like, that's kind of the two arguments. Like there's money to be made and there's nothing wrong with making money. But there is an impact and we cannot sit here and just say that there's no impact when, especially someone who doesn't care about game development comes in for the money. I think there's an insincerity there that gamers can easily pick up on, hopefully. Anyway, the biggest thing since the money is AAA got bigger, going public. Okay, yeah. This starts the flow of down to middle management who are starting to make serious cash. The why of a company changes. Instead of going for the gamers, they want to love to play and identifying as gamers themselves. There's an now sense of other. We made the games, they pay for them. OG Blizzard culture used to be I messed up. OG Blizzard culture used to be we are gamers right down to the receptionist, and we make games for ourselves because we are gamers. That is gone now. The devs at many AAA studios are distinctly us versus them, the whining entitled gamers. This is not helped by the increase in personal attacks on devs by gamers themselves. Absolutely a horrendous practice when gamers attack developers, threaten them, and stuff like that. Gamers are passionate, and unfortunately, this sometimes is this move is beyond criticizing the game to personal attacks and some really unsavory, threatening behaviors. Let's get everyone back to the money. Once gamers are obvious money makers and everyone started to play them, and a cool rep, you started to attract different type of developer. The first wave did it for free, that made very little money, very little success, just to make dreams happen. But once gamers were viewed as stable myth and more glamour career choice with good pay, you started to attract the type of professional who are very good at their job and are definitely what I would call a 9-to-5. They treat it as not as a passion, but as a routine job. And there's nothing wrong with essentially that, though. Like, I want to be clear about that. It's good to have a work-life balance, right? Like, when you treat, like you're doing anything, like, okay, this is a job versus this is a career, and obviously passion projects bleed through, right? That's one of the real good strengths of industry turnover. Phil Spencer talked about this on the Unlocked podcast, I think last week, where essentially like a sign of health is when developers who have a passion take a risk, build a company, make a game, make a product, and then get acquired, right? That is essentially good for them, and having that kind of that acquisition is good because they've made value. And then you kind of see that happening over and over again. Hey, we got this idea, because there is this obvious mindset of, corporate structure, public structure. To be able to kind of break free of that requires money, requires risks, and when it grows, and there's a value there. Anyway, again, this wasn't held by upper management, who by now has fully flooded with the MBA and marketing types who treat devs poorly and binge hire and fire them from project to project, treating them as tools. Hard to have the passion when both management and angry gamers don't have your back. Absolutely. I've said this numerous times. I try to blame leadership and or publisher in terms of where I kind of focus when a game disappoints, because there are just hardworking people at it. And I go, why would you go into game development? I decided not to go into it full time, like when they released a Halo 2 documentary where they locked everybody away for like 9 months. And I was like, there's no way that I want to have a family, and there's no way that I think anybody's going to stay by my side. Like if I have to go live in a building for 9 months, good luck with the kids, honey. I'll see you maybe in a year, like, I guess maybe I akin to military, right? But like, I'm not shipped off overseas. I'm literally down the street. Anyway, then Zynga blew up big on Facebook, and the metrics were becoming important, along with predatory monetization. When mobile exploded and became everything free but with pay to win, the sheer scale of gaming profits leapt in order of magnitude to forwards billions, not millions. Suddenly, making games for game's sake was not the goal. Now games needed to collect metrics, retain users, and by the way, success judged more about how much money per user they could make versus having a great game. The focus moved from gameplay to monetization metrics. Makes sense. When you design monetization metrics, you get a very different type of game than when you design for gameplay. The two are often at odds, so you find yourself deliberately making your game worse so that it can be sold better convenience items and power items. Steve Jobs was right when he let this type of why drive your company, and you make monetization your only goal. You kill innovation for your company, and you drive out the innovators and the makers. 1,000%. While Jobs was talking about sales and marketing staff versus product makers, in games, it's worse. In games, designers are now the sales staff. The gamification of your monetization makes or breaks a AAA game. So now even your product, people are contaminated by this mentality. The devs who do it for passion, who are tired of being blamed by gamers for corporate decisions above them, and for whom do it out of a genuine passion, well, they leave and go indie. But what remains are those who are doing it as a job, only the ones that often hate and are not the innovators. The arrogance is real. Steve talks about how you get surprised because you have a monopoly in the market. WoW had this monopoly in MMOs, and they are no longer gamers, but as game salespeople. So, of course, they are prone to disruption. In this case, it wasn't Square Enix's Final Fantasy by itself that just happened to be a game that it was competing but on gameplay instead of monetization, but they were not the monopoly. So it's also an old enough game where the old values of gameplay were more important. That ties back to what I was talking about, if you guys skip that section, where Yoshi P took away the benefit from being a, the Metacritic score from the devs, taking that pressure off them, right? Like, okay, we're going to take care of you. Let's get rid of this weird connection to like your subconscious based off of subjective gamers. What sparked the exodus from WoW started with a player base that was tired of being treated as customers are often treated in a monopoly, taken for granted, poor service in terms of content, not being listened to, milk for cash and fees. Then came the streamers. Streamers have been the world's biggest force in game marketing, and they can make you a success overnight with zero trad marketing, Apex Legends, or they can absolutely tear your game down. Many in the traditional AAA game market never understood this, and many still don't get it today. When streamers were just getting started, I was told by EA and AAA staff, marketing's team, that it was a waste. What a waste it was to do YouTube and Twitch, even though it cost a fraction of the ad spend. Of course, they were wrong. And now they currently favor the spend money on Twitch and YouTube, but they don't really understand it. They spend money on it, but they don't really watch the streams to understand when things are going wrong or when they don't believe it will affect them. So when Asmongold started dipping his toes into alternatives to WoW, interviewing Final Fantasy content creators, and then finally playing it himself on stream, Blizzard was unaware or unbelieving of what had happened. They were in a monopoly. They were the monopoly. Even Asmongold has taken shock at the sheer numbers of viewers his Final Fantasy stream attracted. Even he has underestimated the number of dissatisfied and curious or for alternate gamers. Well, that happens in streaming. Once one content creator hits a golden vein of views, others quickly hop on. Suddenly you have many WoW streamers talking about Final Fantasy, and they want to stream it. What's a WoW gamer to think? The rest is history. The king dethroned, the expression of shock on his face. Sometimes you don't get the best product. You just need to be good enough to take advantage of a company that has rested too long on their brand and monopoly to attract change and innovate and improve. This won't stop WoW. WoW gamers are leaving for good. But if the monopoly can wake up and pull an expansion out as a turnaround, as drastic as Square Enix did with the Realm Reborn, it can flip it around again. The problem is Blizzard. You chase all of your innovators away. Oh well. Tip for Final Fantasy XIV: follow on this, and you'll 10 times your sales and user base. Take it from the WoW guy. Fix your account website. Take 6 steps to do an emergency rewrite. Thank me later. It took me 3 hours to buy your game and figure out account issues, and I'm not alone. So that's one of the big reasons I put out a guide about how to buy Final Fantasy XIV. That's it. That's why. And I've seen people like, it's not hard. Okay, man. Like, I'm happy for you, dude. Like, I'm glad it's not hard for you. Other people are struggling with it. Other people who know things. And I think that's probably one of the things, like, if you're used to a certain way and then you go into a way and it's completely different and you're like, man, it's just so much easier over here. So Blizzard has made it very easy to give you money. Square Enix has made a better game. I don't know if I have clips on this channel. Feel free to clip and share that sentiment. Blizzard has made it easy for you to give the money. Final Fantasy XIV has made a better game. And maybe I'll call maybe I'll title that video or put it in the thumbnail. We'll see. So I think this is a really interesting kind of point. This is kind of one of those moments that you kind of mark in history with Final Fantasy and with WoW. And the other shoe that could drop is that if Amazon releases an amazing game in New World, whether it starts off amazing or they continue to invest in it, like Blizzard is, has an old game. They have a lot of internal strife. They had, like, one of the things Chris and I've talked about numerous times is that it feels like the problem is within Blizzard itself. Like, you want to do all these great things, but you can't because X, Y, and Z, either decisions made a long time ago or bad leadership today. So, yeah, honestly, I think the next thing to happen is Activision is going to take more control over the company. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Diablo 4, with Diablo 2 Remastered. I think Diablo 2 Remastered is a really smart move because it kind of helps when you're in trouble, when you're not really seen as the good guy, when gamer favor is against you, to kind of go back to your hits, seeing this with EA and with BioWare, you know, Mass Effect Remastered after, you know, they canceled Anthem. So things like that happen, right? That's what happens. Anyway, long video. Thanks for being here. Thanks, guys, for members who, you know, joined. It starts at $1 if you're interested. It supports me and my family directly. And yeah, we're doing that. And then, yeah, no mid-roll. So hopefully everybody got to enjoy that. A very viewer-friendly kind of post and a discussion topic. As always, sound off in the comments below. Like, favorite, subscribe, share. All that internet YouTube stuff. That the nonsense that now people are starting to understand the value. And yeah, we're just gonna say thank you for being a friend. I'm sorry. I got some new toys. Anyway, guys, love you faces. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. And hopefully I'll see you next time. But until then, guys, take care. And I swear it's the truth, and I owe it all to you. I had the time of my life, and I never felt this way before. And I swear it's the truth, and I owe it all to you. I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video, and if you're listening to this voice, you are a special person, and I really do appreciate it. If you feel like watching more, YouTube's got its recommendations for you on the screen. Otherwise, I hope to see you soon. Bye.